Welcome back to Nebraska Shoot Around. I'm Jacob Padilla. Joining me is Drake Keeler to discuss Nebraska's draw in the women's NCAA tournament. But first, I think we need to touch on their run in the Big Ten tournament, which set them up here pretty well with a 6 seed in the NCAA tournament. You were there. Nebraska came within one possession of knocking off Iowa before losing in overtime. Pretty impressive run for the Huskers. What did you see from them?
Yeah, absolutely. Obviously, it's when you look at the 6 seed, that's what the committee was really weighing heavily, you assume. They went to Minneapolis kind of just needing one win to really lock up that tournament slot, and then they went and got 2 more against 2 tournament teams, Michigan State and Maryland. Obviously, Maryland's upset over Ohio State really opened things up. I don't think they would have beat Ohio State. I think that's a tough matchup for them, but they didn't get it, and they went to the tournament conference championship game. Put up a really good fight against Iowa, really impressive. Obviously, Caitlin Clark scored 30 points after halftime. Only so much you can do with that. Iowa executed really well late, and it was really impressive. But, Nebraska caught a lot of people's attention. It was a really good game in the championship game. Was really happy to be there for that one. It was really great to see.
Yeah, and last possession had a chance in regulation. Yeah. Iowa kind of blew up their action. You didn't really get a good look there. So you kind of knew at that point, like, they needed to win it at that. You had a chance to win it, and they didn't quite get it, but still, I think the way they were playing in that tournament compared to maybe midseason down the stretch has to have that team feeling good going into the tournament here.
And even like overtime, Iowa comes out, scores the first 5 points. I'm like, oh yeah, it's over. Yeah. And then Nebraska goes on a 7-0 run. I'm like, okay. they met every single punch, and obviously, fell short in the end. Iowa just, came through when they needed plays. That Gabby Marshall block was ridiculous, but yeah, it's really great, and it was not the Nebraska team I expected to see. I did not expect to see them playing that well in that tournament, and they did, and it has inspired a lot of confidence for sure.
Yeah, and now they move on to the big dance, and like I said, Nebraska drew a 6 seed. They're heading to Corvallis. The committee had a sense of humor here on both the men's and women's side, with Nebraska drawing Texas A&M and the new home of Trev Alberts, but A&M is an 11 seed on the women's side, went 19-12. What do you think about a 6 seed? How do you think that kind of fit with what Nebraska's resume looked like?
Yeah, it was kind of in the range of where it was possible, but definitely felt like a little higher than I expected. They obviously had 8 seed projections. There's a good chance they got a 7 seed. Did not expect a 6 seed, so they really got a great draw. Committee obviously really weighed that their late season wins. So that was good for them to see. Texas A&M, that's going to be an interesting matchup for sure.
Yeah, and from what I've seen of A&M, they rebound the ball really well, but they don't shoot well. They defend well, so it'll be an interesting matchup. Obviously, Nebraska rebounding, something they do really well with Alexis Markowski up front. Aicha Coulibaly is their leading scorer, 13 points, 5.5 boards, 2.5 steals, so disruptive player there. Doesn't shoot the 3 well. And Dia Rogers, 5'7" point guard, 12.5 points, 4 assists a game. And then kind of where the matchup gets interesting is they've got a huge front court.
Absolutely.
Janiah Barker, 6'4", power forward there, 12 points, 8 boards a game. And then Lauren Ware, 6'5" center, starts next to her, 9 points, 8 boards, almost 2 blocks a game. So what do you think of kind of the way these two teams match up?
Yeah, I mean, obviously you mentioned the rebounding. That's something that both teams are really going to have to lock in and on. These are 2 really good rebounding teams. You look at Texas A&M, they're like 19-12, 6-10 in SEC play. They ended the regular season like 1-5, but they also were without India Rogers for that stretch. So they win an SEC tournament, won against Mississippi State, a solid team, and then put up a fight against South Carolina. So they can play. Absolutely a team capable of pulling the upset. I'm really intrigued by how Alexis Markowski will match up with that front court. They're going to work to establish her inside, and that's going to be really important in this one. So they've got to get something going offensively, find a way against this talented team. Texas A&M's offense, they've got players who can score. Janiah Barker is a problem. She's really athletic, really smooth, but feel like they settle for a lot of maybe bad looks sometimes. I was watching some of their games. So it'll be interesting to see how they can get things going offensively as well. So that's going to be a tough matchup. I'm really looking at the front court in this one for sure.
Yeah, and assuming Natalie Potts is going to get that assignment there, so that'll be a tough test for the freshman going up against one of the better players in the SEC. But kind of what do you see as the key? And we talked about the front court matchup. What do you see as the key for the backcourt for Nebraska to maybe earn an advantage there?
Yeah, I think it has to do. It's connected to the front court, of course, getting Markowski established, but also just I think when you saw Nebraska go up against some of the more athletic teams against Kansas, I think early season they settled for a lot of bad shots and just like were really stifled by that defense. And you don't want to see the same thing happen here. They're physical, they're active defensively, and they got to work for good shots. It's going to be hard to kind of penetrate and get those passes to Markowski, and it's going to be a tough test for Jazz Shelley for sure.
Yeah, and obviously Shelley is capable of swinging any game that she's in at any given time. It's just a matter of, all right, which version of her is going to show up. But Nebraska they've got a couple of freshmen playing key roles with Logan Nisley as well. So have to see how Potts and Nisley can handle this big stage, having never experienced it before. Yeah, and you're going to need that leadership from the upperclassmen for sure.
Yeah, and Natalie Potts has been defending really well as of late. Had 9 blocks in the conference tourney after
9 all season.
regular season. I did not expect that. That kind of defensive intensity is going to be needed. Logan Nisley has been huge for this team. She's really important, and she's going to be another one player who can be an X factor in this matchup for sure.
So that'll be the late one on Saturday. You're gonna have to wait for a bit, or on Friday rather, 9:30. Yeah. So again, give me a long time for Nebraska fans. The men will play earlier in the day. That is ESPN News, was it?
Yes, ESPN News or you.
One
of those. You can find it. Yeah.
Obviously, the women's team is on the ESPN package, and then the men will be on the TNT Turner package. So, they're spread out, so Nebraska fans can watch both. So that to wait a while, but then on the other side of their kind of little quad there, you've got the 3 seed Oregon State up there in Corvallis against 14 seed Eastern Washington, and Oregon State went 24-7 this year. Really good defensively, despite not being a high turnover team. They don't really force turnovers; they just get up and really guard you. And they share the ball really well and shoot 37% from 3. So tough matchup offensively. Reagan Beers is their star, 6'2" forward, almost 18 points a game, over 10.5 boards a game. Really efficient from the field. And Tamea Gardner, 6'3" forward, just sharpshooter, 11 points a game, 41% from 3 on 5 attempts a game. And then Talia Von Olhoffen is kind of running the show there as a point guard, almost 11 points, 5 assists a game as well. So that's who Nebraska is probably going to see if they advance. That's a pretty tough matchup there, especially again kind of the home court advantage up there.
Yeah, absolutely. Obviously, I think they have 2 losses at home, both to top class of the Pac-12. But also, I think this is almost the draw Nebraska prefers. The other 3 seeds are UConn, LSU, and NC State. So I think you're fine with this matchup. Obviously, still really tough. Everything you said, spot on, of course. So it's going to be interesting to see if I think this Texas A&M matchup is going to be almost a toss-up. So that's going to be really interesting as well. But yeah, it's going to be hard to win one game and make it to the Sweet 16 if they can do that.
Yeah, but again, talked about the kind of their favorable draw there, 6, like unless you're top 2-3 seed, like you're going to have to pull an upset to make a deep run. And I think Nebraska putting themselves in this position mid-season there, we weren't really sure. It was trending the wrong direction.
After that Rutgers loss, it looked like it, could fall off the rails, and they just redirected back on track.
Yeah, so really impressive job by Amy Williams and her staff and the leadership of this team to get them back on track. And again, the freshmen kind of stepping up, and Natalie Potts was a rock all season, and then Nisley kind of turning it on late, stepping in, providing them another offensive option. I think has been big for them. So going to need all cylinders firing here to get out of this weekend. But I mean, even if they do get through this first game and then come up short in the second round, I think that it'd be really kind of a great sign for this program moving forward, something to build off of.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you really want to get just that first tournament win, which they haven't had under Amy Williams. So that's going to be the main test. Obviously, you want to be competitive in that next game. I think I'd kind of put the ceiling at Sweet 16. I think Notre Dame is ridiculously good. I don't think anyone wants to see Hannondale go right now. So that's gonna be fun to watch for sure.
Do you have any other thoughts on kind of the bracket as a whole and how some of the seeding shook out, maybe for some of the other Big Ten teams or anything else that kind of crossed your radar?
Yeah, Michigan State's the one going to South Carolina. So they've got a really entertaining first matchup. That's against North Carolina. So I'm excited to watch that. But after that, it was a good season for them. But besides that, obviously there's a lot of really great matchups in Nebraska's region. Indiana plays a very good Fairfield team. The second region is obviously stacked. I think it's Iowa, LSU, and UCLA. So that's really great. So yeah, I'm really excited to watch just how this bracket unfolds.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy there. Iowa and LSU potential to kind of meet up at that point in the tournament. Like I guess they didn't want to wait until later on, but then again, LSU didn't quite have the season that I think some thought, and 3 seed is kind of the result of that. So. That is the women's tournament. You'll be watching this closely to kind of see how the Huskers do and have coverage for HurrdatSports.com, the Hell Varsity page. Stay tuned to our social feed for all of our postseason coverage. This has been the Nebraska Shoot Around, and we will be back after Nebraska's first weekend.